China has the most of the world's rare earth reserves. It is also the largest producer and consumer of rare earths. As U.S. cuts off Beijing's access to advanced chips amid intensified competition, China fights back by prohibiting and restricting exports of rare earth technologies. This is not the first time China plays the rare earth card. But how dependent is the United States on China's rare earth products? Will China's countermeasures succeed? Hello everyone, welcome to Leisrealtalk. I'm Lei. The Chinese edition of Nikkei Asia reported on April 6 that Beijing added or modified 43 items in the revised catalog of prohibited and restricted export technologies. Rare earth is not actually earth, but a general name for 17 rare metal elements used in a wide range of applications, from LED lights, cell phones, home appliances, automobiles to large military rockets, cannons, and tanks. It is a strategic resource known as the industrial vitamin. Because China's rare earth reserves, production, and exports are the largest in the world, Beijing has used it as a strategic weapon. In 2010, Beijing stopped exporting rare earth to Japan following the Diaoyu Islands incident, disrupting the business of Japanese manufacturers such as Toshiba and Panasonic. During the 2020 U.S. China trade war, Beijing announced sanctions against U.S. defense giant Lockheed Martin, shutting down the company's production of F-35 fighter jets because the production of each F-35 consumes on average 417 kilograms of rare earth products. Now, Beijing is planning to play the rare earth card again to counteract the United States. But will it succeed? The United States was once the dominant player in the international rare earth market. China has been aggressively getting into the industry since the 1980s. From 1978 to 1998, China engaged in excessive mining and disorderly competition. From 1998 to 2014, the Chinese government set strict controls. From 2014 to 2020, 6 large Chinese rare earth companies were established to compete with the West. These companies crushed foreign competitors by virtue of low price dumping and government trade subsidies. During the 20 years from 2000 to 2019, China controlled 86% of the world's rare earth production. In 2021, attempting to control global pricing, Beijing further consolidated its domestic rare earth industry into 2 giants, Northern Rare Earth and China Rare Earth Group. But the merger did not seem to give China a pricing advantage. According to China's Rare Earth Industry Association, the price index of rare earth fell more than 40%, from 345 in April 2022 down to 221 in April 2023. However, Beijing's strict control of the domestic industry by way of export quotas and higher export tariffs resulted in a rampant black market. Illegal mining and black market activities have significantly reduced China's reserves. In 2013, China ranked first in the world with 55 million tons of reserves, accounting for 48.3% of the world's total rare earths. In 2020, it was reduced to 44 million tons, dropping 20% in 7 years. Of the 44 million tons of reserves, the more strategically important medium and heavy rare earth accounted for only less than 3 million tons, or 6.8% of China's total reserves. Consequently, mining of heavy rare earths has been reduced since 2018, and China has relied on imports from Myanmar. In 2018, China imported 25,800 tons of heavy rare earth ore from Myanmar, which is about the same amount as its domestic production. China dominates the low-end market, but lags behind in high-end products. At the recent 2 sessions on March 5th, the chairman of Bao's Steel Group, Meng Fanying, admitted that her company trails Japan and the U.S. in technological know-how. Her company owns Baiyun Ebo mine, the world's largest rare earth reserves, but faces technological bottleneck in producing high-end products. She said that China has production capability that's large but not strong. China, Japan, the U.S. and Europe are the world's largest consumers of rare earth, accounting for 57%, 21%, 8% and 8% of global consumption. In other words, being the largest consumer of rare earths, China processes rare earths primarily for its own use. Although China leads the world in rare earth separation technology, the United States and Japan hold the main rare earth application patents. For example, the Iowa State University's Atomic Energy Lab can produce rare earth metals at 99.9999% purity, while Chinese companies can only produce a purity of 99.99%. In 2010, the world was alerted to Beijing's weaponization of rare earths during a geopolitical conflict with Japan over the Diaoyu Islands. In March 2012, the U.S., Japan, and Europe sued the CCP for violating WTO rules by conducting rare earths export controls. Beijing lost the case. In May 2019, during the trade war with the U.S., Xi Jinping visited the rare earth industry in Jiangxi province, giving the signal of a potential rare earth war with the U.S. At the end of 2020, the EU established the European Industrial Materials Alliance, or ERMA, to ensure that the EU owns a range of key minerals, with rare earths being at the top of the list. As reported by Reuters in August 2021, the EU is looking into producing a specialty magnet in the region that is critical for electric car engines, reducing dependence on China. Beginning in 2019, the U.S. Department of Defense and the Department of Energy have been heavily funding the basic research, processing, and production of rare earth. In 2020, U.S. Rare Earth LLC launched a joint venture with Texas Mineral Resources Corp. Called the Round Top Rare Earth Project in Texas. The project is estimated to have a mine life of approximately 130 years, with a total mineral reserve of 364 million tons. It owns 16 of the 17 rare earth elements. In August 2021, the project successfully separated individual rare earth elements and derived byproducts. This is a milestone for the United States because China's recently announced export control technology targets this process. Also in late 2021, scientists at Oak Ridge National Laboratory and the Department of Energy's Idaho National Lab worked together to successfully develop a rare earth separation technology. The United States, Japan, and Australia have also joined forces to create a mining and smelting separation chain in Weld, Australia, and Kuantan, Malaysia. Japan Oil, Gas, and Metals Corporation has made a long-term investment in an Australian company called Lynas Rare Earths. It's the only large-scale rare earth producer outside China. According to Bloomberg, Lynas production is able to meet all U.S. needs, including the 500 tons of rare earth materials needed for defense equipment production. The U.S. Department of Defense is also funding the Australian company to build a new 5,000-ton per year rare earth separation facility in Texas. This shows that the U.S. and its allies, Japan and Australia, have started to form a rare earth industry supply chain independent of China. Although the U.S. imports 80% of its rare earth products from China, U.S. imports accounted for only 4% of China's exports. What the Americans need is not rare earth raw materials, but finished products such as magnets. China supplies 75% of U.S. sintered neodymium magnets, which is used in specialized defense equipment. The U.S. Commerce Department estimated last year that American domestic sources could potentially satisfy up to 51% of total U.S. demand of neodymium magnets by 2026. However, the Chicago-based Paulson Institute estimated that electric vehicles and wind turbines alone will require at least 50% of the high-performance neodymium magnets in 2025, and nearly 100% of the supply in 2030. So these green initiatives will consume the incremental production growth by domestic producers, making the United States more dependent on China's rare earth products. I think China knows this, and that's the significance of China's recent ban on rare earth technologies. This is part 3 of the Sino-US Tech War series. I moved filming back to my home office, which is more comfortable for me, and you seem to like it better. Here are the 2 previous videos. One is about China's manufacturing bottlenecks, and the other about China's industrial software, lack of ability in industrial software. Please subscribe and stay tuned for more. Thank you. Thank you for today. That's all for today. Thank you. Oh, I need to have a sip of water.